we're here at the Mount Forest Community Garden. Thank you, Jeremy and Henry, for coming.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah.
So, we have invited you here to share your wisdom about tomatoes.
Yeah.
And we'd love it if you just tell us a little bit about things we should know. A lot of us haven't done this before, so whatever wisdom you can share, we'd be happy.
Okay. Well, one thing I can tell you about tomatoes is tomatoes really like to have airflow through the plants. It helps keeps them dry. Tomatoes don't like to have wet foliage, so they don't like water on their leaves too much. If plants are left very bushy like this, one thing that can happen is you can start getting mildew in the insides of your plants. And once that starts happening, tomatoes, it'll spread quite rapidly through your tomato plants. So one of the big things you can do to help that is to take off some of the vegetation that the tomato plant loves to grow. So tomato plants are very prolific growers, and they actually like to produce a lot of leaf. They actually will produce more leaf than tomatoes unless we do a little bit of corrective pruning. So by corrective pruning is when you look at the branch of a tomato plant, you'll always look for the main stem or stalk that's going to come up. And you'll always have a lateral leaf, which is called a sunleaf. It'll continue up. Above your sunleaf, you will have your fruiting branch. And at the crotch, and it's always on pretty much a 45-degree angle, you have what is called a sucker.
Okay.
Now, suckers, in some cases, could become a new central leader if this was to get damaged. But with a very robust plant like this already, we're pretty confident the top is going to continue to grow up. So all this is doing is robbing nutrients from the rest of the tomato plant. And as it is below the fruiting branch, it'll actually rob a lot of the nutrients that are going to go into that tomato itself. So my trusty assistant here, Henry, he's going to trim it off. But before we do that, I want to mention one thing. I prefer to use a little pair of scissors like this.
Okay. Can I zoom in on that?
Yeah. So they're just a nice little pair. I can get right in there, quite small.
I might have some of that in my craft drawer, I think.
Yeah, I think that's probably what these ones are.
Okay.
I like them. They're easy to open and close. Some of them are very tight and they're just not conducive to working. One of the most important thing with whatever tool you choose to use is that it has to remain clean. Tomatoes, like I said, are very prone to things like mildews and molds. But if a plant farther down the road or from another place has some sort of a bug or disease on it, you could spread it to your healthy plants just by sharing the same piece of trimmers. So these were washed. I just actually trimmed my plants before we came here tonight, but just mild soap and water is all that I use to clean these in between. If you don't have access to soap and water, everybody seems to have hand sanitizer or wipes, disinfectant wipes because of what we went through the last few years. But just a quick wipe of the surface will help, prevent anything spreading between sites, more so than a row that you're actually trimming. Some people like to do it between varieties. I don't find that to be too hard. So I'm going to give these back to my trusty assistant here. So again, what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to open up this plant to allow a little more airflow through, allow it to dry better if it does get rained on. But we're also going to tell the plant that, hey, I want to put more energy into these little guys because they're going to be our tomatoes.
Okay.
So Henry, you can go in and we're going to remove, again, it's always your sun branch. Then the 45-degree one is the sucker. That's perfect. Okay, so then we'll just save those. So as we follow up the branch, you will see that there's a little baby one forming here, but it's pretty hard to get in there and take that one out. Okay. So that would be at a later date, maybe within 3 or 4 days, depending on the season, how much rain, sun we get. That would be tall enough and small enough that you can just pinch it off with your fingers. Yeah. So as we open up the plant, again, you can see But down here at the bottom, we have one here that's just at the bottom. So Henry, you're going to reach in here, right down there.
Where people can see
Right here?
Yeah.
Right here?
Yep.
pretty dense in there.
Yeah, and take that guy off.
Okay.
Yeah.
And out he comes.
And out that one comes. So some people think this is counterproductive because, as you can see, there is a baby fruiting branch right here.
Okay.
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah. But I've been doing this for quite a while, and it does seem to be counterintuitive. But in reality, you're going to produce more tomatoes. You will produce bigger tomatoes if you take off the sucker branches, because it's going to put the energy into the proper fruiting branches that are already established by the plant. So again, it might feel like, oh, I don't want to cut anything off my plant, but in reality, you're doing the plant quite a service, and you'll do yourself a service by removing these.
Okay, and we're going to continue on.
Perfect. So when we were talking about removing the suckers, you'll see, like, again, here's another one just starting, but I usually don't waste my time removing that one at this stage. I'm looking for bigger ones. So as I go back down my main trunk and I see my sun branch again, and then right here, again on the 45 is another sucker.
Okay.
So when they're small enough, you can actually just like break them off. You won't cause any damage if they're small enough. Here's another one right here. And again, you just have to sort of snap it. It'll come right off.
Would this be a sucker right here?
Sorry? Yes, again. So that's perfect. Henry's followed up the main trunk line. He's found his sun branch. And then we remove the sucker, which will put a lot more energy into this fruiting branch here. And the plant will continue this pattern as high as it'll go, and that'll depend on our season. We have quite a short growing season in this country. So, we only probably got another good month and a half or so of really good growth. We'll have more in tomato production after that, but the plant itself, vigorous growth, will start to slow down probably in the next month and a bit. So it's a good habit, I'd say. I usually do mine about once a week at my house. On the farm, it's a little bit less than that, but we have quite a few tomato plants, so they're in various stages of development. So some are ready this week, then next week I got more to do, so there's a bit more pruning involved there. But I would say that, as a general rule of thumb, if you're out, once a week or so, just come, you just move your plant around. Again, you want to be able to promote some airflow through the plant. The ones that are touching the ground, especially. But we don't want to remove them too soon because they're very important in terms of the plant creating energy.
So those really big ones at the bottom?
Yeah, these really big guys. And that's because there's some soil pathogens like blight that the leaves that touch this can actually bring, and you'll see little sort of yellow spots start, or sometimes you get leaf curl, things like that on your tomato plants. As far as this one goes, with this style of trellising, these plants can be growing much more bushy. This type of trellis works really, really good for getting lots of tomatoes out of this, as long as we open up the center and remove the suckers.
What about tomato cages? How are they different?
So tomato cages are good. The sort of thing about them is they have to be put on when the plant is very, very young. And you have to really be on top of them to make sure that the tomato grows in the cage. Because if not, sometimes a day later you'll come and your central leader is now outside of the cage.
Right.
Trying to bend it and get it back in sometimes can break it. At that point, we have a bunch of old nylons at the house. I'll use that just to tie off of the tomato cage to the branch that's there.
Sometimes use the old clothes pegs that are...
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Something like a clothes peg. You don't want to damage the surface of that. So something that's sort of soft around here is really good. The downside of tomato cages is if you have a lot of tomatoes to grow, it's a lot of cages that you have to have.
Right.
They require space at the end of the season to store and stack up. But at our house, we actually do use the tomato cages, and we grow both climbing and bush tomatoes in a normal 3-foot tomato basket that we have bought. They are, if you spend the money on good ones. Our tomato baskets are about 15 years old, so they can last for quite a while if you take care of them. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about if you do see something on the leaves that looks like blight or something that's just not green? What should you do with those leaves? Should those go in the composter or?
Typically, we don't like to do that. Just because it's hard to say how long it'll take for those pathogens to break down and not recontaminate things because it is a soil-borne pathogen. What we typically do at our place is I dispose of them just in the green bin that gets picked up by the town.
Okay.
At the farm, we have a different style. We have like sort of different levels of composting. So there's a pile that's sort of disease, what we would call sort of plants that are diseased or have something on them that we don't want just put back into the stream. It may be fine after 6 months, but we don't want to risk that.
Okay.
But it is definitely something that, yeah, if you start seeing spots in that, then that'd be something that you could do. So the last thing we're going to do, so we talked about our suckers, which are going to help our fruit production. So what we are going to do, sort of our last thing here is we're going to get Henry just to remove a few of these leaves that are right on the very ground. And you can just see that they're completely covered in soil from the lovely rain we've been having. But just even having the soil on these, the little residue, it really stops the process of photosynthesis. So Henry, can you come in here and we're going to take off that low guy there.
It's right here.
Yeah, right up against the stalk.
It's a tomato growing. See?
Yeah, I got a few tomatoes already. These are looking. So I'm gonna put my arm over you, and can you remove this one that's all full of earth? Perfect.
How about this one down here?
Yep, I would like you to clear those off. I'd like to see the main stalk structure on the bottom. This plant's definitely tall enough now that we're not too worried about these leaves producing a whole lot of energy. One, some of them are like completely underneath the plant, so they're not going to really get much sun. We're now relying on these guys to do a lot of the work for this tomato plant. But already we can start to see a lot more airflow through here.
Yeah, it's looking a lot more air.
And that'll just help with pests and disease. Henry, I think this one could come off here just due to the fact that we have a lot crisscrossing in the same location.
Right here?
Yep, please.
I think some people might be afraid to take all those off.
I
right?
know it's like I said, sometimes it feels very counterintuitive to like actually start cutting your plant apart.
Yeah.
But if you come back and look at this same plant in a week or two's time, you'll see if you didn't trim this one, you'd see a remarkable difference.
See a difference already between this one that's not trimmed and this one that is trimmed. Yeah, it's got a lot more airflow.
Yeah.
Now these leaves look healthy, so I'm assuming these leaves can go, the ones we cut off can go in the composter?
Yes, all this I would definitely just put right back into your compost system.
Wonderful.
And again, you're going to repeat this process a few times throughout the summer. So, this will all add up. This is just from one plant and just a quick trim. You can come back in a week and you'll take another 4 or 5 branches off as well. So, yeah, it's a really nice way to grow some stuff to amend the soil for the future.
Well, that's wonderful. Is there anything else we should know at this point? Maybe we'll have you back if we think of something else.
If there's anything else, we'd love to come back. And there's nothing better than a fresh tomato, in my opinion. So, I love these. Are sort of a little pet project. So I really enjoy learning about tomatoes too.
We are so thankful that you could join us here at the Mount Forest Community Garden, Jeremy and Henry.
Thank you very much.
And
See ya.
hope to see you again.
Yep. Bye, everybody.